Hello and welcome everyone from wherever you may be around the globe. My name is AK Ikwakor. I'm a 2007 Oregon alum, and I am thrilled to be having this conversation today on entrepreneurship and ultimately answer the question of, can it be taught? I guess we'll find out shortly. Now, in this episode, we'll be speaking with panelists and we'll be showcasing the state-of-the-art programs at the University of Oregon or the Lundquist College of Business that are helping students become successful entrepreneurs. In addition, we'll also be talking about the history of the entrepreneurship program at the University of Oregon, as well as the progress that it has made. Now, during this discussion, you may also be able to submit questions into the chat through the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen, or also in the chat feature on the live stream on YouTube. Now, I am extremely excited because we have students as well that will be joining the conversations and some alums to talk about their experience. But first, as we talk about this conversation on entrepreneurship, I want to introduce two amazing individuals. Andrew Nelson, who is the Associate Vice President of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and also Kate Harmon, who is a Program Manager at the Lundquist College for the Center of Entrepreneurship and the Director of Cross-Campus Engagement. Now, Andrew and Kate, I just want to say welcome. How are you today?
Doing great. Thank you so much, AK. Great to be here.
Great.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Okay, nice to be here as well.
Well, before we dive in today's conversation, just tell us a little bit about who you are and then your role within the entrepreneurship world, especially at the U of O. And we'll start with you, Kate. Tell us a little bit about you and what got you into this entrepreneurship.
Sure. Yeah. Well, as I said, my name is Kate Harmon, and I'm the Director of Cross-Campus Engagement for the Lundquist Center for Entrepreneurship. So my lucky job is to be able to promote our academic and co-curricular entrepreneurial offerings across campus and have students think about entrepreneurship as a viable career path. And so my own personal background, I've been at the University of Oregon for about 6 years. I am a former liberal arts major, and as someone who has started their own small business and started a nonprofit, I often reference my own non-business background to show students just how accessible entrepreneurship can be for furthering one's career.
Okay, so you've mentioned a word, and that is entrepreneurship. One, I'll be honest, sometimes it's difficult to say, and also oftentimes for me, difficult to spell. But for everybody else, how do you define the word entrepreneurship? Like, what is the definition?
Yeah, great question. So entrepreneurship to me is essentially the act of creating or extracting value through taking risks or acting on opportunities. Value creation can come in many different forms, from creating a startup or a business or even nonprofit to innovating from within an organization or a company, which is a term called entrepreneurship. It can also take the form of bringing new ideas to market or innovating and improving upon existing ideas or technology. So that's just kind of a broad way of how I might define entrepreneurship.
Well, I mean, it's helpful because you're talking about entrepreneurship, and I know we're going to dive more into that. And it's also it's also just the way that you maybe tackle problems and even the mindset. Is that correct as well?
Absolutely. So I think one of the key things here is, entrepreneurship is not just starting a business. It's about really a mindset, and it's something that anybody in their background can actually incorporate to further their own professional interests.
And when we think about the U of O, entrepreneurship is big. And, we've had a few different sessions, especially within the speaker series, on one, the Oregon Consulting Group, our OCG, or the Business Academic Residential Community, also known as BizArc. And we also have Flight School and some other amazing programs at the U of O. Now, this is for you, Andrew. How has, entrepreneurship been incorporated with some of those initiatives at the U of O, and how did you get into the space?
Cool. Great questions. I'll start with me. So I'm Andrew Nelson. I'm a professor at the College of Business and the Randall C. Pepe Chair in Entrepreneurship and Innovation. I also serve as Associate VP for Entrepreneurship and Innovation for University of Oregon. That means that I help to coordinate and stitch together what's happening across the College of Business, our new Phil and Penny Knight campus for accelerating scientific impact, the Provost Innovation Initiative. There is a ton going on at University of Oregon in this space, and it's such a pleasure to work with Kate and many other colleagues to help support this activity. Let's see. So you mentioned several other programs, and you were asking, well, how does entrepreneurship fit in with all of these? I obviously have a biased perspective here, but I think it, in many ways, it underpins all of them, or at the very least, is integrated throughout them. And one of the great things of the College of Business is we not only have outstanding individual programs, we think a lot about how they can work together and support one another. So I'll give you one example: the Oregon Consulting Group. For those of you who aren't familiar with this, a tremendous experience for our students, where they learn not by having someone like me stand up in front of a classroom and lecture to them. They learn by going in, engaging with actual organizations, facing actual problems, coming up with recommendations and an action plan to implement those recommendations. It just so happens entrepreneurs do much the same thing. Kate was just talking about the process of value creation and entrepreneurship going into existing organizations. This is what we do. We identify problems. We try to identify what's not working about the status quo, or how might the status quo be improved, and then how can we actually execute on solutions or execute on ways to do things better. So entrepreneurship, each of these programs you mentioned and many others, it's both the activity and, as Kate said, the mindset that underlies it all.
Well, you were talking about the programs. Like, so how long have the programs been around at the U of O? And then how did it actually start? And what was it, some of the origins?
Oh man, I'll put on the professor hat and scratch my chin a bit, right?
Let's take us back a little bit.
Back in the day. So,
when I was young, lad.
I think at least a really interesting and often underappreciated history here around entrepreneurship in the University of Oregon. So today, most universities have an entrepreneurship center and they're active in this space. That wasn't the case even just a couple or few decades ago. So at University of Oregon, this starts in 1973. Almost no one, in fact, I could count on one hand the number of schools that really had entrepreneurship programs. So University of Oregon, MIT, and Carnegie Mellon get together, supported by the National Science Foundation, to launch a new program focused really on academic entrepreneurship. How do we take things out of research laboratories in universities and explore the commercial potential? Here at University of Oregon, we leveraged that in the 1980s into our Lundquist Center for Entrepreneurship, which was one of the first entrepreneurship centers in a business school in the US. And then we've just grown since then. So I know we'll get to this later, but have really a new and exciting charge to take all of this activity and move it beyond the business school to look at how we can serve the entire University of Oregon campus. And Kate has been one of our tremendous leaders in that space.
Well, so I hear we talk a lot about the term entrepreneurship, but there's also the individual contributor side of that, of the entrepreneur. So when we're thinking about this, Kate, in terms of an entrepreneur, like, what is an entrepreneur and what have you seen as what makes a successful entrepreneur?
Yeah, I would say, being an entrepreneur suggests a certain amount of proactivity on oneself, someone who is willing to think different, not afraid to take risk in seeking ways to improve areas or their life in general. I would say the best entrepreneurs tend to be very curious and will often want to find out how something works. They also tend to be very open and receptive to feedback from others, and often look at feedback as an opportunity to learn. And I think with our student and our recent alum, you'll see just that curiosity and that reception to feedback through Zoe and Will here in a moment.
Well, let's think about it. We're talking about feedback. We're talking about education. We're talking about teaching. So within the University of Oregon, what type of challenges or even seen successes that you've seen in teaching entrepreneurship to others?
Yeah, well, I would say the one challenge is a lot of people just think of entrepreneurship is only about starting a business. And I think that, being able to communicate that entrepreneurship can actually is really entrepreneurial is a mindset that anybody can develop to further their own career. We all have to, in this work environment day and age, have to sell ourselves. We have to create our own personal brand. And studying entrepreneurship, you understand and you get this sort of valuable toolbox that will help you leverage opportunities for whatever discipline you might go into.
Well, I mean,
AK, you're muted.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. One of those weird things that happened when I was just mouthing. I was working on miming. One of those weird things that happen in this virtual world that we live in. Sorry about that. But when we're thinking about entrepreneurship, and we are thinking about it only sometimes as well. Obviously, this is the Lundquist College of Business. How are you attracting students from outside the business school to get involved in, especially when we talk about mindset or being proactive and the creation process? We'll bring that to also you to Kate once again.
Yeah, well, we do through a lot of different mechanisms. So on the co-curricular side, we offer a wide variety of pipeline activities, from workshops and events that basically expose students to what entrepreneurship is. And then as students get interested in that, they may be interested in taking our curricula. And one of the exciting things that we have developed over the last couple years is a new entrepreneurship minor. That's available to students, undergrad students, all across campus now. And what's awesome about our entrepreneurship minor is that it allows both business and non-business students to be in the same classroom environment. And what we found in this kind of setting is that both the business and the non-business students really learn as much from each other as well as from the professor teaching the class. The business will be able to help those non-business students understand what it's like putting together a business model and thinking through that framework, while our non-business students can often teach our business students about things such as maybe creativity or certain kind of technical skill sets. So it's really a great sort of marriage now with this entrepreneurship minor that now students have the actual ability to create really interesting ideas that can be supported by actually executing and potentially launching with other resources that we offer through the center.
When we're just thinking about resources and expanding and working together, I think it's tough to talk about entrepreneurship without talking about film night. Now, Andrew, I know, I went to the university as a track and field athlete and ran track and field. So just that name of Phil Knight and Nike of Just Do It has a big impact around the globe. How has his work or even influence played a role in entrepreneurship at the U of O?
How much time do we have? It's like, yeah, the first thing I think to point to is simply inspiration. And those of you who've read Shoe Dog or who know the story of Phil Knight and the founding of Nike, it is such an inspiration. And our students actually study that story and look at what can we learn from that. So that's a major role. We can't talk of Phil and Penny Knight without acknowledging their just incredible philanthropy also, which has made so many things possible. The one I would highlight is the Phil and Penny Knight Campus for Accelerating Scientific Impact. And it has as its very mission, taking insights, particularly in life sciences and bioengineering, and bringing them into the world, making a difference, making the world a better place. But what's cool about this initiative, it riffs off something Kate was just talking about, which is bringing together these different disciplines. So through the Knight campus, we offer a bioengineering PhD program. Ours is the only bioengineering PhD program in the country that requires an innovation course as part of the degree. So these students don't just learn fundamentals of bioengineering, they also learn fundamentals of business and innovation and what does it take to actually bring a product to market. And of course, these courses are taught through Lundquist. And so that also provides a way for our Lundquist students and faculty to mix with our Knight campus faculty. So there are so many ways in which the Knight family has benefited the university. But it's just been a tremendous partnership over the years.
Well, Andrew, with that, you talk a lot about innovation and being one of the few schools, or the only school, that really has that part of the curriculum as part of the minor, is where would you say that the University of Oregon is above the curve when it comes to these programs, and where would you say is an area that is still in some development or see some improvement on that side?
Yeah. Above the curve, I'll start with that one. I think one of the places we really shine is, again, in this interdisciplinary engagement. And Kate probably knows the numbers better than I do, but it's something like 36 different departments now, which are feeding into the minor. I mean, really everyone from cinema studies and music to product design. And so we have just an incredible diversity, and it really speaks to this perspective on entrepreneurship, that it's not just for business majors, and it's not just about starting a new business, a new startup. It's more about a mindset, and it's a much broader and more applicable thing than that. You asked, where are we behind the curve? I will say, Kate and I and all of our colleagues, we're never satisfied. And this is, in a sense, we're internal entrepreneurs at University of Oregon. So I think we often look around and say, that's great that our program went from, I'll take the minors, we went from 0 up to 180 in a year and a half. That's great. But man, we'd like to see that continue to grow and grow even faster. So we're always in this mode of what can we do better, what can we learn from other places, and then implement that.
Well, I know you're talking about the minor, but I know, Kate, how is the entrepreneurship program structured at each level of the university? Because I know you're talking about the minor, but how is it with the undergraduate and the graduate, and maybe even, do you have a certificate program that's also available?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have the minor that we spoke of. That's fairly new. We've had for 30 years now an entrepreneurship concentration for those students in the College of Business that they can take. And what's awesome really about our entrepreneurship concentration is that students can actually very easily double concentrate with our major. And so we often will see students double majoring in, entrepreneurship and marketing, or entrepreneurship and finance. And so even within the business college themselves, students see the value of taking entrepreneurship. On the graduate side, we've had a very distinguished, highly nationally ranked MBA entrepreneurship program run by my colleague Nathan Lilligard, and top ranked various Bloomberg Business Week ranked as, I think, we're number 9 in the nation in terms of the program. And so a really well-established program where we've had a lot of successful MBA startups actually launch and be successful. And then, Andrew can probably speak more about it, but he and others have just recently put together a graduate certificate that's going to be kind of similar to what the minor is, that allows graduate students from across campus to actually get some entrepreneurial education. And so that's something that will be launching next year.
Okay. And one of those things is when we speak about entrepreneurship, we often associate that with risk. And especially when we're teaching entrepreneurship, we can teach about, how to build a business plan. We can talk about, how to market yourself. But there's sometimes where you have that idea that you want to get out to the world, but it has to take that jump. It has to take that leap. You have to take that risk. How is the curriculum helping students really handle that, or I guess that aversion to risk? Like, is there any programming? What do you do on that side of things?
Well, I think the very first thing is that, making sure that the students feel like they're in a safe environment, that it's easier to take risk, if you will, when you're in college, and to learn, even if that risk is unsuccessful. We say here that there is no failure, that it's only a learning opportunity. And so our classes are structured so that there is a supportive environment, that students feel that they can be nurtured without necessarily feeling like they're exposed or failing in any kind of way. And then, outside of really the classroom, one of the great resources that we have at the center is we have a really well-established mentor network. So students that do have a business idea and want to develop it further, we have a dedicated startup coach whose really sole job is to meet one-on-one with students and help them in their venture development. And that then also allows that startup coach to then connect them to other mentors with, specialized experience. Alumni who are a great resource to our center will also mentor our students. And so it really, becomes a really supportive environment. And so again, if that student, idea does not turn out to be successful at the very first one, the second idea, they can feel comfortable coming to us and being able to be experienced with that mentorship again on the new idea. So I think that's one of our sort of signature things that I would say about our program.
Well, when I think about the program, like currently, right now, I live in Boston. I live on the East Coast, and for you, Andrew, in the Boston area, we're really into tech and we'll say biospace, right? Now, what are some of the ventures that are coming over on your neck of the woods on the West Coast, on the Northwest? Because I know here, like I said, with tech and that community, and Kate was talking about the failure or the startup that sometimes you might need to just go to a different region. Talk a little bit more about what's coming out in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, absolutely. So we love tech also. I'll start there, both more IT, software kinds of plays. And then, of course, life sciences and biotech are, of course, a big part of our portfolio and what we're doing. But I'll highlight a couple other sectors as well. And actually, before I do that, I should say you're going to hear shortly from Will Schofler, who's running what I would characterize as a tech company. Tech meets the real estate market. But a couple other places I would highlight. One is in sports products. Oregon, for those who aren't from here, many people don't appreciate we have over 800 sports products companies headquartered in the state of Oregon. So Nike gets a lot of play, but this is a tremendous environment for launching new sports products, outdoor-oriented companies. Another space where we've had tremendous success is in the food area. And so we've launched several companies, students out of our program who've launched new food companies. One of them, Picky Bars, was just acquired a couple of weeks ago and announced that acquisition. Red Duck Foods was acquired last year. But these are food boutique specialty food companies being started by students. And the nice thing about doing this in Oregon is we have the entire ecosystem contained here in the state. So everything from literally supplying the raw products to figuring out labeling expertise to being able to get on the shelves of stores and get that initial customer feedback to going all the way through the regulatory side and the financial side. It's all here in the state of Oregon. And so this is a great place to do those companies along with many others.
Well, let's think about it. When we're talking about entrepreneurship, when we're talking about innovation, the last 18 months has been, difficult. People have had to innovate. So how has the pandemic played a role, and how have you been entrepreneurial, we'll say, in your approach into solving this problem? Any new things emerged?
Shall I take a stab at that one?
Yeah, give that to Andrew. We'll give that to Andrew.
Okay, now you're looking.
The easy question of how do you emerge in the pandemic and be innovative? So yeah,
there's this great phrase that adversity is not something you survive as an entrepreneur. It's the reason you are an entrepreneur. And I think this last year has clearly highlighted that. And I often describe entrepreneurship as fundamentally just a process of identifying problems and executing on solutions, or in other words, problems are actually opportunities to then do something about that problem. And one of the things COVID has obviously highlighted for us is, wow, there are some very serious problems out there. I think it's inspirational actually to see how entrepreneurs of all sorts have stepped up to do that. The fact that you have a young startup like Moderna, which in record time develops an incredibly effective vaccine, there's entrepreneurship in action right there. If we look internal at University of Oregon and what we're doing, we've responded in a lot of different ways. Part of it is to orient our curriculum towards the challenges of COVID. 2 months ago, for example, we ran a program called Ducks Disrupt, which was a an entrepreneurship boot camp where all the participants looked at different problems that COVID has presented, everything from homelessness to how do you establish connections with others, to how do you deal with mental health issues, which have emerged in a very disturbing way over the past year. And then how do we move towards some solutions on that? And over the course of a month, these participants, alongside many mentors and others who helped them along the way, developed some really inspirational ideas, a couple of which actually have now launched as businesses. So that's one thing we've done, is to say, how do we actually orient our curriculum towards real world issues? We've done some other things too, more behind the scenes, everything from pulling in guest speakers from literally across the globe. That's hard to do in a real environment, but in a virtual environment, we can do that really well. Training our students on how do you gather customer feedback in a virtual world, and using online tools when you can't actually get out there in front of customers. So, again, our whole approach here is how do we be nimble, and how do we use this challenge as actually an opportunity to innovate what we're doing.
And I think innovation can come from anywhere, not only business students. So this is for you, Kate. Why do you think entrepreneurship is only seen for business schools or business students? And how are you getting those other students outside of that program incorporated and involved?
Yeah, well, it may be just the geographic of the fact that our program is in a business college, and so that sort of maybe communicates that you have to have business background, or we're only interested in starting businesses. So that is the thing that we are trying to do in correcting that and communicating the relevancy to developing an entrepreneurial mindset. We engage with a lot of our cross-campus partners. So I mentioned some of the co-curricular type of activities that we do. These activities are not done in isolation. So working with different departments, for example, one of the programs that we run is an entrepreneurial boot camp called Sustainable Invention Immersion Week, and that brings our product design, our journalism, our green chemistry, and our business college all together for a week-long boot camp where students are challenged to develop a sustainable product. And so by communicating with my peers and other departments, by getting them involved in what's going on entrepreneurship across campus, we're able to reach these non-business students and hopefully communicate the value of what entrepreneurship can do for their areas.
And then, Andrew, as an alum and also an entrepreneur, how can alumni get involved, or how are they getting involved?
In so many ways, and it's I always point to our incredibly talented faculty we have across the university, but the reality is the secret sauce in our programs is our alumni and that external engagement. And they get, for any of you alumni out there, I guess the quick message would be shoot me or shoot Kate a message, and we'd love to talk with you about how you can get involved, because there are a variety of different pathways here. Some alumni like to show up and be a guest speaker in a class where they can talk about their actual experiences and interact with the students in that way. Many of our alumni serve as mentors, and Kate has described just how important mentors are to our program, and again, drawing on their experience to work alongside student entrepreneurs. These pitch competitions, hackathons, other kinds of events that we have, we almost always include alumni as either mentors or as judges or panelists, again, to give feedback. And the final thing I should throw out there, because it is genuinely very important to us, but it's the role that alumni play with their financial support. Many of these programs are supported through alumni gifts and alumni donations, and that's what makes much of this activity possible. So lots of different ways to get involved, and we rely on all of it.
No, and I just want to thank you, Kate and Andrew, for sharing, the innovative ways that the University of Oregon is really making an impact on students' lives, as well as just getting a little bit clear on what is entrepreneurship. I'm really looking forward to hearing more, and we're going to hear this momentarily on your final thoughts. But we're going to actually bring in some students to talk about their experience within the entrepreneurship program, as well as some of the exciting ventures that they are a part of. So I'd like to introduce you to Will Scheffler, a recent alum and current student, as well as Zoe Stanley. Will and Zoe, welcome. How are you this afternoon, or wherever you are around the world?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic.
Yeah, great to be here.
Now, before we kind of, we dive into experience at your U of O, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what attracted you to entrepreneurship. And like Zoe, we'll start with you first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a senior at UO. I'm graduating in June. So a little scary, but exciting. But I am a business major. I'm double concentrating in marketing and entrepreneurship, and I have a minor in psychology. So I've got a great little synergy of interest
Yeah.
happening right now. But kind of my experience with entrepreneurship has been very vast. It's been both in the classroom, talking with peers, working with alumni and project groups, but I've also had a lot of experience kind of on the startup teams and external businesses and small businesses. And I also have a few side hustles that I've been kind of doing on my
Yeah.
own in the digital marketing space. So I'm currently working on a coffee blog that I'm looking to scale up into something big. So yeah.
Well, you talked about the coffee blog. You talked about some of the organizations you're working with. Can you just talk about like what do you define as entrepreneurship, especially from the student side of things?
Yeah, definitely. I think entrepreneurship is just so vast that I just don't want to put it in a box.
Yeah.
It can be so many different things. It's just all about that innovation, that capitalizing on opportunities and creating value where value wasn't there before to just solve problems that were not being addressed before, meeting unmet needs for customers. And again, just really creating that value and creating a big change in the world. That's my biggest thing, is just to make an impact on. If I can impact someone in the world, then I've done my job as an entrepreneurship. So putting that on a
Fantastic.
larger scale, awesome.
Yeah, and I know Will, you're deep in the thick of things right now. As it sounds, is you just came off graduating a few months ago and up to raising $4 million to launch your company. Insta showing will actually got some recent press they'll actually be putting into the chat. Now, can you just talk about how it went from being in the classroom to doing entrepreneurship and learning about it to now running your own company, raising 4 million, and now having to manage a team? Talk about that experience.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And yeah, I think the thing is I came up with the idea in university. And so my junior and senior year, I was working on Insta showing, and I was honing the idea, working on different product lines, and took classes just to be able to figure out how to turn this into a business. And so I've been working on it for a few years now, and the business school really helped me hone what the business was and where the value is. And then essentially right when I graduated, I had a lot more time, and I was able to raise some funds, and there's some opportune moments, and now I'm able to hire a team. That's definitely a lot of fun, but it's also very, very stressful. Lots of high moments and low moments.
Well, even when we think about it, you're an entrepreneur, you're getting some tremendous success. Well, like what got you and what got that entrepreneurial bug in you, and where you always will say an entrepreneur?
I don't think I was always an entrepreneur. I definitely enjoy taking risks, but the university and taking like entrepreneurship classes, you can see that some of these grand ideas or visions don't have to just be delusions, and you can actually turn them into actionable business plans. And so I think one of the first businesses that I actually did was from an entrepreneurship class freshman year, and you're challenged to actually come up with something tangible, and you had peers criticizing and helping make it better. And so that was a very supportive environment where I was able to come up with my first idea, and kind of honed how to pitch things and how to think about like value generation, and figuring out like what types of products people actually like. So.
Well, again, and for both of you, this question is going to be for both, but we'll start off with you, Will, is how do you take those low moments, right? Because we know sometimes in the entrepreneurship world, those can happen, and then turn them into learning experiences. And we'll start off with you, Will.
Yeah, no, well, when you're usually having a low moment, it's usually because there's a lesson to be learned. So I'd say you're going to have them, but it's all about bouncing back from that, and making it a learning experience, and making sure that you create that solid foundation going forth with your knowledge, so that you don't go down that same end point again and have another low moment.
Yeah, and to you, Zoe.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to echo that. I think the pandemic's had a lot of its ups and downs this past year, and it's really taught us that resilience is key, and you need to know who your support system is. You need to know that people are always going to be there for you, especially, your peers, your family, your Lundquist faculty. I've never known you couldn't reach out to anyone in the Lundquist College of Business for help. And so I think it's just, as Will was saying, just bouncing back and just using that as a learning experience. Entrepreneurs, we fail quite a bit. But I think that's part of the process. You have to try new things. You have to kind of flow with it and just use that to know that, hey, this didn't work, but we're going to try something else, because that's not the end all be all.
Well, it sounds when you had those learning experiences, you were doing something one way and then something was like, maybe there's another way of doing things. Have you have any, those aha moments as you've been on this entrepreneurship journey? And do you have any examples to share?
Yeah, so let's see. Well, I'd say the main thing is it's all kind of like it's almost the scientific mindset. You have to, like Benjamin Franklin said, or Thomas Edison said, it's like he tried 10,000 times and then he found one way that worked, and then he found his massive success from inventing the light bulb. And so, anyways, it's just about continually iterating and kind of changing the mindset from like, how do I avoid failure to and make things perfect, to how do I keep iterating and continually release new features and test it, look at the data and figure out how to make it better, and until you figure out how to get market traction. And so it's kind of just a process of just continually trying things, as opposed to trying to figure out how you make it perfect the first time.
Right. And then for you, Zoe, as we're thinking about it, everybody is thinking about, okay, should I jump into this field of entrepreneurship? And you are a senior now. And what has been one takeaway that you've had through taking the programs at the U of O in terms of entrepreneurship? Any kind of ahas for you?
Yeah, I think this would be in my very first entrepreneurship class. It was Management 335, and it was just my first experience kind of in this very different classroom setting. So we didn't have a textbook. We didn't have the traditional tests that you would take. We basically learned by talking to each other. We learned from case studies. We learned by studying other ventures. And so this really kind of opened my eyes to be like, there is a new way to learn how to have that entrepreneurship mindset and gain those tools to really gain that confidence. That was creativity and confidence were the things that I lacked coming into that class. And kind of coming away from that, I was like, wow, I do have the tools. I do have the capabilities to kind of pursue what I want to do, start my own business and create this value, capitalize on these opportunities. So I think that was my aha moment, is just being able to see that value of support and that confidence in myself that, creativity does not have to stay out of business. You can combine those things, create, again, those synergies, and really do something pretty amazing. So I think it was just the aha moment that I can do it.
Well, and you've also have worked for businesses and companies. And, for you, when you're thinking about, who you've worked for, like, and you're talking about your management course, there was no textbook. What were some of those learnings that you took from actually working for some of those companies?
Yeah, so I think I would speak on kind of my current opportunity I've been with for a year. I actually pitched my own internship opportunity
Nice.
to this startup, and it was amazing. It's a woman-owned human resources company. And so I was really able to kind of apply these innovative ideas and kind of mentalities that I had learned kind of in that class, and took that into this space that I was already very entrepreneurial. They are the lifeblood of this organization is entrepreneurship. They're constantly finding new ways to really serve their small business clients. And I just think it's amazing. So being able to have that space as an intern to really, pitch ideas directly to the CEO, she listens, she implements. And so kind of being able to do that within an organization was really quite interesting. It was the entrepreneurship that Kate had mentioned earlier, and being able to, again, like I said, kind of take those opportunities, create value from within. I think that's absolutely entrepreneurship in a whole nother light that I'd never experienced before.
And then, for you, Will, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, have my own company, and I'm an alumni, right? How have you been able to tap into the alumni network? And now, since you're an alumni, once that happens, you get gray hairs like me, and that's all normal. How are you able to tap into the entrepreneur network, and how are you seeing ways to give back to students that were on a similar journey as you?
Yeah, so at University of Oregon, there would be constantly very successful entrepreneurs or CEOs that would come into the university and essentially either talk to our classes about their experience, and so, or they would just simply be there in Kate's entrepreneurship wing, and you could get a time with them, and you could pitch them on your product or your idea, and they just be able to hone your concept. And so, yeah, there was always alumni coming in and out, and it was really great to have people with like perspectives either in technology or real estate or any of those ventures that help like kind of just give me a really good understanding of how the roadmap should look like for my own product. And so seeing that at university, and then I served as a entrepreneur in residence at U of O and just helping other students. There's a lot of resources in Eugene from entrepreneurship classes or programs put on during the summers, like boot camps. And so just connecting students to those, it was awesome. And seeing students like really pursue one of their dreams and try to build up a business. But after I graduated, I went through this crazy period where there's a really big market opportunity, and it was very hard to navigate. There's a lot of things I haven't faced. There's a lot of things that I haven't learned how to handle. And so being able to tap into the alumni network of people who have handled those situations, I've gotten funding from alumni at the U of O. I've gotten just great advice essentially from how to handle like negotiations on very obscure contracts I have to sign. And so it's really all encompassing. There's a lot there, but being able to tap into that network really just gives you this whole level up as opposed to others who don't have that network.
And then, as we're having a conversation with Will and Zoe, you're almost there as you're about to graduate. Where do you hope to go with entrepreneurship after graduation?
Yeah, definitely. So I will be continuing working with the company I had previously mentioned, really trying to work on that entrepreneurship, create new opportunities and new value from within. But my brain's always running, so I have plans to do some things on the side. I would really like to create my own digital marketing consulting business, really try to help out those small businesses who really need that extra boost to get off the ground, and marketing is just a huge thing. And it's just been a great passion of mine that I've kind of been able to pair with entrepreneurship throughout my college career. So it's been a really great opportunity there, but I'm just not going to stop. My ultimate dream, it's kind of like a staircase, is to own my own coffee shop, but that's a, big dream, and we'll get there someday. So my entrepreneurial brain is never stopping. So we'll see what I end up doing.
But you know how to create and take action. So it's all going to work out, I promise. And if not, we'll always learn from the experience. That's what we're learning, right? Now, with Will, as you're obviously getting a lot of traction, what advice would you give students that are wanting to start their own business after graduation? And then also, do you have any plans on how you want to maybe support some students after graduation that are also looking to get into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I'd say start freshman year. So start pitching, start trying to figure out what you want to do in life, start exploring different avenues of creativity or innovation, and just make things and just test them out. And I've done 2 other businesses before this, and essentially freshman year I made a food product and worked on that and to launch that into like Whole Foods and work through that whole process. And then sophomore year I worked with a professor and spun some of his research out of the university and got some funding and went to China to try to start making in some factories. And so I had a lot of great experiences and just learning the different pitfalls and the different situations you have to navigate. And I think it's really just about rinsing and repeating some of these situations. And so I think you have 4 years in university, you might as well start practicing now and get a leg up on the competition. And then it's just a process of self-discovery. So hopefully by your senior year, you'll kind of figure out an avenue you want to go down and maybe even have a business that's starting to come out. I've seen plenty of students who have really, really cool, innovative products that they then work on after university, and giving that time to let the idea nurture and not having that pressure of trying to pay your down payment on your down payment on a house or your mortgage. It's just the best time is is in university to start working on an idea, and when you're young. And I'd say giving back. I love to keep coming back to as many classes as Kate invites me to, and she'll make a lot of introductions to people who just like to bounce ideas off and talk about business, their pitch deck or their business strategy. And so I'm always open. So if you ever have any questions, just reach out on LinkedIn, and I'll for sure set up a Zoom and talk to you about it.
You know, we're talking about, you know, volunteering and getting Kate. Let's bring Kate and Andrew back on. As we're, you know, it's been just a pleasure to hear from you, Will, about your experience and just your journey. And we're excited to see what's going to happen for you as well, Zoe, as we, you know, keep us updated on what's happening. I just want to say, you know, the work that the U of O is doing is tremendous in so many different ways. But as we close out today, any final words that we would have for individuals that are looking to jump, take that risk, and become more entrepreneurial or become entrepreneurs and start something for the future? And I'll start off with you, Zoe.
Yeah, I think the two main takeaways I would love everyone to remember is never underestimate yourself and never underestimate your support system. You have got the tools, you have got the willpower, you can do it. If you fail, you get back up, you brush off your knees, and you get back to it. And second is just making sure that you recognize you have so many people, especially at the UO, who are there to not only support you, but pick you up when you do fall, when you do fail, and that's okay. Again, I will always say the Lundquist staff has just been quite an help from this. You can always go to a faculty's office hours and just sit down with them, pick their brains. So again, support, and you've got yourself. So with that, you can do anything.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, much appreciated. And to you, Will.
I'd say risk taking is very scary sometimes, extremely scary, but it's the best time now to start. And there's really only upside. And there's, if you look at it in an honest view, there's really no downside to taking these big risks when you're young. Nike started as a business plan and was pitched. One of our investors is Pete. He started Trulia, and he did that as a business school entrepreneurship pitch as well. And look at where those businesses are today. And so it just all starts with like planting the seed, and that starts early on.
Thank you, Will. And to Andrew.
One of my mentors shared with me some advice, so I'm going to pass it along. She said that she has far more regrets about things that she didn't do than things that she did and then didn't turn out the way that she hoped. And that has really stuck with me. And in many ways, you know, Will mentioned Nike just now. Maybe that's captured in Nike's slogan itself, which is simply just do it.
Thank you. I mean, just do it. I know that very much as an Oregon alum, just to make that leap and make that jump. And, you know, to close it out, Kate.
Yeah, I would say, you know, it's very easy to get involved with entrepreneurship at the University of Oregon. If you're unclear whether you want to commit to taking a class, come to one of our co-curricular offerings. There you'll meet other students, probably with similar mindset of your own. And from there, you'll be able to kind of decide whether, you know, is it right for me to take classes? Do I want to do the minor? Do I want to do the concentration or MBA graduate certificate? Or maybe I just want to, if I have an idea, I just want to use the mentorship resources and visit with our startup coach and our alumni network to build out that idea. So whatever way is possible, it's very easy, low barrier entry to try out entrepreneurship at the University of Oregon.
Yeah, and it's time to take that leap and that jump. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for sharing your time on a Friday afternoon to have the conversation on what is entrepreneurship. So once again, just thank you, Andrew and Kate and Will and Zoe, for sharing with us your tremendous work at the U of O is doing to help students really become successful entrepreneurs. Now I'm so excited to see like some of these bold new areas of entrepreneurship the U of O has entered into. And because of that, I'm proud to call myself a duck. That's all we have here today. And once again, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to join us and supporting the work that we do here at the business school. My name is A.K. Ekwakor. Have a good night and Go Ducks.